In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
Well, oh, the British press said that.
When I was pregnant, so we had in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
All right, it's been a long week. Last week, the royal bombshell that is Endgame was finally published to much uproar, to put it lightly. I do apologize for taking my time with making this video, but it was just information overload. It is quite repetitive, but I was just waiting to see, it was an updating story, and I was waiting for Meghan and Harry to say something. But as of the day of filming, the 4th of December, they haven't. Now, full disclaimer, I haven't read the book. As I've mentioned, I will not be purchasing it, and I will not be reading it. Having said that, I have read the reviews, which have not been favorable. Not looking too good for Omid Scobie. With the New York Times describing his chapter on Meghan as reading like it's been written by ChatGPT, the BBC as well, notoriously pro-Meghan and Harry, have described the book as failing to pack a punch, and The Telegraph described it as ludicrous propaganda for Team Sussex. I'm sure you get the gist. I've also listened to a lot of royal commentators on official, British news channels. And if one thing is clear, it is that all of these reporters have unanimously described the book as offering entirely nothing new, for the most part. Of course, we'll get to the new stuff. And so someone, somewhere, may have decided to spice it up just a little bit. After years of Harry and Meghan sharing way too much, way too fast, and spinning their seemingly endless tale of victimhood, it comes as no surprise that Endgame doesn't really tell us anything new that we haven't heard, at least since Megxit almost 4 years ago now, if you can believe it. As usual, everyone within the royal family took quite a beating. They were criticized, including the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, who haven't even been involved in any of the Sussex drama as far as I know. Even they weren't spared. Forgive the pun, it was unintentional. Whereas, of course, Meghan and Harry were described as gold-plated saints descended upon this earth from the very heavens themselves. The only two new pieces of information that we have all been blessed with by this book that nobody asked for is, firstly, the ludicrous claim that the palace staff told Catherine and then Meghan to dress as their dead mother-in-law, Princess Diana. I just find this claim to be so beyond ridiculous and clearly an attempt by Meghan at explaining away all of the times that she practically cosplayed as her dead mother-in-law, which people say Catherine does as well, but aside from a few dresses here and there where it's like, okay, yeah, I can see the inspiration, I don't see it. At least not anywhere near as sinister and blatant and incessant as Meghan does. It's creepy, and she knows it, which is why she put out this version of the story, expecting all of us to actually believe it. Then, of course, the reason that you're all here. The translation error that accidentally revealed the names of the now 2 royal members that speculated about the color of Archie's skin, at least according to Meghan Markle. But in a move that is very convenient for Meghan and Harry, they didn't have to do it themselves, and we'll get back to that later, the 2 names were revealed as the king himself and his beautiful daughter-in-law, Princess Catherine of Wales. Now, first things first, I think even though it's been said multiple times on this channel alone ever since 2021, it is important to repeat that speculating about what a future baby will look like is not racist in any way whatsoever. In fact, I hear that Harry himself speculated about the appearance of his future child when he was interviewed, I believe, by James Corden when they first moved to the States. Unsurprisingly, another case of rules for me and rules for thee. Second of all, and equally as important, unless we cannot disclose the names in the UK for legal reasons, directly translates to King Charles and Princess Catherine in Dutch, there is no way on this earth or in hell or heaven that this was a translation error. We all know by now that the translator herself, a Dutch woman by the name of Saskia Peters, has verified to us all that the manuscript that she translated from contained the names. What a coincidence it is for the 1 or 2 paragraphs that contained these names in relation to the Oprah racism allegations happened to be, out of over 400 pages, the 2 paragraphs that were, mistranslated or caught up in this error. Of all the paragraphs in the book, it had to be these 2. Omid, Scobie, and Meghan and Harry must really think we're royally stupid. And is anybody else getting a serious case of deja vu here? Because not only is this whole racism, uproar going on as if it's 2021 all over again, but Harry's book Spare also went through a huge PR fiasco, disaster, putting it on the headlines when it published early in Spain earlier this year. Remember that one? Is it just me? Or does it appear that someone is operating out of the same PR handbook? Because make no mistake, error or not, this has plastered Omid's book on the news non-stop ever since it happened, thereby maximizing his sales, whether intentionally or not. Now, as to the source of this information, while I cannot prove this definitively, I do not have the requisite evidence to prove this as fact, as soon as I realize that Princess Catherine has been dragged into this, my instincts started screaming, Meghan. Now, she denies, indirectly through a close friend or a close source, that she leaked anything to Omid, and denies that anyone from her team did so as well. But of course, Meghan doesn't have the best track record when it comes to credibility and telling the truth, does she? Especially when it comes to being involved with Omid Scobie and his book, because as we all remember, she lied, or she forgot that she heavily collaborated on finding perjury, going as far as sending a whole list of talking points or, dot points to Omid Scobie via Jason Knopf. But she forgot that. Probably because she had mommy brain, as she referred to Catherine when she had just had Louis. To me, based on all of this previous information that we have, that we know is fact, Meghan apologized for misleading the court after all, this has just got her fingerprints all over it. And as to what her motivations may be, well, I think it's clear as day. Jealousy and envy. Full disclosure here, I'm a little bit biased, because I'm in a similar boat to Catherine in that there is a woman out there, a woman scorned by rejection and diseased with envy, who wishes me all the harm that the universe can provide. Why? Because I exist. There are people out there who are so empty and broken and just twisted on the inside that they can genuinely loathe you and the very ground you walk on simply because you are you. Because I can't put my finger on it, and I'm sure Catherine can't put her finger on it too. I mean, I think being the future queen has something to do with it. But I don't think it starts and ends there. I genuinely think that Meghan has always been deathly envious of Catherine, and as a result, and this is still a theory, I'm not saying that this is fact, takes it out on her by trying to disparage her good name. Because from where I'm sitting, the only crime that Catherine has committed against Meghan is being the beautiful, talented, and confident, sophisticated woman that she is, aside from being the future Queen of England. So Meghan can deny all she wants. There is a lot of cause to point the finger at her. And also, apart from King Charles, presumably she's the only one who's got a copy of the letters that she exchanged with the king back when he was Prince of Wales in 2021. So if Meghan didn't leak it, then are we to presume that King Charles did, to disparage his own good name? And on that note, who writes a letter 3 years after the fact? So we're talking, you know, these things happened when she was pregnant, according to her, in 2018, 2019, and she only thought to write a letter and send it in 2021 after the Oprah interview? After she set the world aflame with her allegations that she has now thoroughly backtracked from, just as her husband did, very publicly, in that masterclass of gaslighting during his interview with Tom Bradby? If it was so horrific as she claimed it was, so damaging for them, why not bring it up when you were still living with them? If it was so bad, wouldn't you want to confront them about it? And the same goes for Harry. How could you just leave it festering in you for all these years and then write a letter after you broke the story on one of the most televised, publicized interviews of all time? I mean, we know from Harry himself that they didn't bring it up and they never raised the issue because he put that into his book, Spare, where William talks to him after Prince Philip's funeral and tells him, why didn't you come to me? I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. You know, of course, assuming that this even happened, because at that point, William was probably so upset, he didn't even know. When did this happen? When did these conversations and concerns about your child's skin happen? I think William's reaction, as long as we can believe Harry's depiction of it, is actually quite telling. He was horrified. How could you not come to me? This tells you that this mentality, this way of thinking in the royal family is unacceptable. By the way, speaking of William, did you know that this exact same form of speculation about what a future child might look like was actually done to William and Catherine a decade ago in 2013? Not by their family behind closed doors, where it's very natural, but by CNN, of all publications. What and who will the royal baby look like? Catherine's commoner genes might lead to a somewhat darker skinned baby. The royals are pretty pale. Catherine's skin has a considerably more olive tone, and the baby will likely be somewhere between the two, but more like Catherine because her genes are dominant over lighter ones. The odds are the child will have darker skin color than the royals might be used to. Yeah, actual proof that this happened not to Meghan and Harry, but to Catherine and William. And while I was only a teenager back then, I don't remember any uproar and, you know, people screaming from the rooftops, racism. So it's okay when it's done to white people, but when it's Meghan Markle, it's racist. Now, there is a theory, you may have heard this one, it's not that popular, that Omid Scobie may have used this as a PR stunt to maximize sales.
I wrote and edited the English version of the book with one publisher. I had never submitted a book that had their names in it, so I can only talk about my version.
Yeah.
I'm as frustrated as everyone else. I make it very clear in this book that I, in every way possible, want to adhere to the laws surrounding this subject. It's why I've been very careful in how it's described in the book.
Okay, I guess not. Well then, if it wasn't Meghan or any of her team, and if it wasn't Omid to maximize sales, and if it wasn't King Charles, because we know that's ludicrous, then who was it? A ghostwriter? And I mean literally an actual ghost. A ghost, like Casper, writer. Because the translator didn't do it, we know that. So yeah, case solved, I guess. Now look, Omid denies it, which I have no proof that he did it. And he seems to be quite aware of the legal repercussions. He's put that into his, English book, and he's repeating it. And I believe as a lawyer that his legal team have definitely warned him about the repercussions of this, especially given that it's probably not true. And, a defense of defamation is truth. So if you're saying the truth, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about, presuming you have evidence. But clearly the man's just relying on his sources, and I think we have a very good idea of who they are, and they have no proof. Now, I mentioned earlier that suddenly there were two when Meghan and Harry just referenced one in the Oprah interview. And I don't know whether they had King Charles or Catherine in their minds when they gave that interview. It could be entirely a separate person. And in fact, there is a palace insider who has informed a journalist that it is indeed a different person. They haven't been named, but this palace insider insists that he knows the incident that they're referring to, and it's not necessarily a confirmation that it was racist, but the person who raised the topic, I suppose, wasn't the king and it wasn't Catherine. But of course, Meghan and Harry are fueling the fire by remaining hush, very conveniently for them. I mean, I suppose it's for the better, because these two can't even keep their stories straight when they've both clearly colluded. Again, I referenced the Oprah interview, Exhibit 355, where they both couldn't even stick to the same timeline with regards to this conversation happening. As you remember, Harry said it happened before they were even married, and then Meghan says that it happened while she was pregnant. So yeah, the truth and credibility and corroboration just seem to fly right over their heads. Now, assuming this was all done intentionally, which you have to understand for legal reasons, I cannot say definitively that it was done intentionally because I can't prove it. But is this dirty, nasty attempt to take down the King and Princess Catherine disgusting and absolutely worth calling out? Yes, entirely. However, I do believe that the media has contributed to this mass hysteria over an issue that has not only been thoroughly debunked for all the reasons I said, earlier in the video, this is not racist, but an old story. I mean, I know the names are not old, but think about it. What are the names attached to? The Oprah allegations from almost 3 years ago. Allegations which, as dirty as they were, because we know the intention was to destroy the royal family, at the end of the day turned out to be utterly baseless. So is this damaging to the King and Catherine? I really don't think so. I think that Meghan and Harry have absolutely zero credibility, and Omid Scobie along with them. And as a result, and especially given that this is in connection to an old allegation, I don't see how people are suddenly now going to believe it simply because the two individuals have been named, allegedly, assuming that they are actually the individuals who made these comments. Allegations in and of themselves are not proof. They're not evidence. Meghan can write all the letters she wants, and Amber Heard can write all the emails she wants. You writing a letter accusing someone of something doesn't prove that they actually did it. And trust me, not only do I know this because I'm a lawyer who knows the rules of evidence, especially as they apply in the UK and Australia, but it's because someone tried to use that dirty tactic against me 2 years ago. And guess what? It ended up backfiring spectacularly in their faces with massive repercussions. So don't try this at home, kids. Don't make up allegations and put them on a pen and paper thinking that they're going to fly when they can absolutely be used against you in a legal proceeding. And that's why I don't believe the royal family is going to sue for defamation. Because at this point, the allegations are baseless. They have no credibility, no gravitas, no one's buying it. And so if I were their lawyer and I was weighing it up, I'd say, look, it's just going to be such a hassle. You're going to bring so much more attention to it. I mean, release a statement by all means, echoing the Recollections May Vary statement, but to go through a whole legal proceeding to disprove something that's already been disproven by everyone, including myself, over the last almost 3 years now, is really a waste of money and resources and a lot of stress. If it didn't work back in 2021 when Meghan and Harry actually still had some form of, reputation and popularity and credibility before the whole world saw right through them, then why on earth is it going to work this time? As for Omid Scobie, I mean, he's clearly using a family feud for money and clout. He talks about the British monarchy like it's on the brink of destruction. I mean, does he know history? Does he know that it's been standing for 1,000 years, having withstood much more trying situations and much more formidable foes? Does he seriously think that Meghan Markle and her pathetic, baseless accusations can take down a 1,000-year-old institution? Possibly. I mean, he believes everything else Meghan says. But the way I see it, this is much ado about nothing because the royal family has nothing to worry about. They're going to be fine. In fact, they've been better than fine. Their popularity as it is right now is the highest it's been in recent memory, at least to a person like me in my age group, 30 and under. They've never really been on the map as much as they have right now, and in a positive light. So yeah, Endgame, I think not. Unless we're talking about Meghan and Harry, of course. Their Endgame has been in the making for a long time. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was going to return back to the fact that Meghan and Harry have said nothing, which is oddly convenient for them, given that they have been suffering from a case of verbal diarrhea for the past 4 years, actually over 4 years, because I count the South Africa trip with their first interview with Tom Bradby. They've denounced nothing, just like they denounced nothing when the racism accusation hung over the entire royal family's head. Did they clarify then that it was unconscious bias? Did Harry come out then and tell Tom Bradby that my family is not racist? Did they reject the Ripple of Hope Award for standing up to said racism within the British monarchy? No. And now they're playing the same game. Now, it is possible that Omid has been markled. You see, people like Meghan Markle, I've had the misfortune of coming across them and having to deal with them myself. And if there's one thing they try to do as often as possible, it is use other people to do their dirty work, known as flying monkeys. Because some people say that Meghan and Harry didn't want these names to come out. If they wanted them to come out, they would have put them out. Well, says who? Someone like Meghan is as devious as they get. Everything she says is measured. She's always covering her back, always protecting herself. And so why would she put herself in the line of fire and name the two individuals herself when she likely knows that it's all made up? She's done it before. She's used her friends, 5 anonymous friends, to talk to People magazine and go after her father. So why wouldn't she do it again? You know, leopards can't change their spots. And if this is the case, you know, all I can say is they're a pair of cowards, Meghan and Harry, having other people do their dirty work, which is hilarious because, as usual, if this was indeed the plan, then it royally backfired once again because guess what? Almost everyone is pointing the finger at them. And their silence most definitely is not golden when it comes to this situation. Because in this instance, as with the Oprah interview, their silence speaks volumes. Notice how Meghan denied leaking the information, but didn't deny that the two names were indeed the names that she referenced. Why? Because she wants it that way. At least that's the way I see it. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and let me know your thoughts below. See you later.